10 years ago, I backed Star Citizen. It feels a bit crazy to say that now, but here we are in 2025. And 2 years ago, I uploaded a video where I explained just a few of many reasons why I replaced Elite Dangerous with Star Citizen, and it exploded. It ended up catching the algorithm and skyrocketed to 288,000 views, over 3,000 comments so far, and sparked a few intense conversations here and there, and made it my most viewed video ever. So with all of that attention and feedback, I think it's time for a follow-up. But in this video, I'll talk a little bit about why after 10 years of backing and 2 years since that original upload, I'm still playing and I'm still loving it. Does that mean that it's been smooth sailing the whole time? Not exactly. So whether you're someone who's thinking about making the switch, or if you're just curious if I've changed my mind, let's get into the good, the bad, and the future of what this game could be. This is my journey with Star Citizen 1 decade in. While I've only spent so much time of the last 10 years actually playing the game, simply due to time, life, and hardware limitations, immersion has always made the biggest impression on me. And in Star Citizen, I've always felt that I'm in that universe. No matter the alpha version number, or the state of the game, or if the elevators are working, let's start with the good. After backing the project that at the time was the new kid on the block, I was still playing Elite because I loved everything about what a space sim could have. We were born too early to be able to truly experience space travel like what we could have in the future, and I've always felt that Star Citizen is exactly that. It always looked and sounded completely expansive and immersive. I always have a general sense of how large a planet is, or how far the station above it is orbiting. And once you park along a capital ship like a Bengal or a Polaris and EVA out of your ship alongside it, it just makes you realize how small we are. I feel that my character in that universe has as much freedom as a citizen of a future civilization could want. Unlike other games where you might be a little confined to specific missions or roles, I feel like I have the agency to explore, to trade, to mine, to fight, or even engage in a little piracy here and there. And those gameplay loops are not without their consequences. One of the most exciting parts of the game for me is the ships. There's something a little magical about walking around the bridge of the constellation Andromeda, or climbing up the ladder of the Arrow, where you know it's not just a vehicle, but it's a highly detailed and functional masterpiece. Not only does the game look like the future, but it sounds like it. And to give credit where it's due, Elite has some of the best and the most incredible audio design in a space sim, but it doesn't quite match Star Citizen's dedication to detail. Those little shifts in ambient noise, the ship engines, the lateral thrusters, and the afterburners all work in tandem to immerse you completely in that experience in the cockpit. The moment when your ship emerges from the floor in your hangar is mesmerizing. The atmosphere of being in there and hearing the hum of the ship's systems is nothing less than powerful. That ship is yours. The game is going to make sure that you know it. While I could list the software development jargon involved for how much of a technical marvel it is, the game itself is beautiful. Maybe even, as Keanu Reeves would say, breathtaking. But every ship is meticulously designed, with this level of intricacy that makes it feel like a real functioning vessel. It has a purpose, and it's not just a collection of polygons. Ship hulls aren't just smooth, uniform surfaces, but they're adorned with all sorts of functional elements like paneling, rivets, cooling vents, and the like. Each one actually feels like a piece of engineering with both aesthetic and practicality. The entire universe has this strange way of making me forget that I'm sitting in front of a screen. I've also met some incredible people and even more amazing communities through either Twitch or YouTube content creators, like Ollie43, Morphologists, or Yosilus, to name a few. And whether I'm teaming up with some of my own friends or the complete strangers in game chat, those communities have added this enormous amount of value to my experience, and it's another reason why I keep playing. There's a camaraderie that makes the game a little bit more enjoyable, and unfortunately, it's sometimes rare to find a community that is as passionate and dedicated as the Star Citizen backers are. After all, it is the largest crowdfunding project in history, but no project this ambitious comes without its hurdles, and Star Citizen is no exception. To start off with the bad, I know what you're thinking, and it's something that I think a lot about too. 10 years is a ridiculously long time to back a game that hasn't yet bypassed the alpha stage of development. This was a pretty resounding piece of feedback that I received, but I've always shared the same sentiment. I've always had to remind myself that Cloud Imperium Games started off with a small feat to achieve, a Kickstarter campaign goal of $500,000 that was reached in the first 24 hours. After that goal was met so quickly, they created new stretch goals for the project, including ship types, new systems for AIs and NPCs, new planets, and the multiplayer and persistent universe that we have now. When Squadron 42 was formally announced as the single-player, story-driven campaign in the same universe, CIG began to treat it more as a separate product. It has an absolutely star-studded cast such as Gary Oldman, Henry Cavill, and Mark Hamill, but the cast list is way too long to even include here. Those names garnered an additional significant amount of attention, and that process and the success of the Kickstarter and the team introducing more goals for the game in the long term, unfortunately introduced one of Star Citizen's biggest flaws: feature creep. I'm sure that most of you have heard this phrase before, but for those of you who are not aware, feature creep is essentially the gradual expansion of a project's features that go a little bit too far beyond its original scope. This will happen as new ideas, new suggestions, or new features are continuously added to a project, sometimes resulting in delays, increased costs, or a complete lack of focus on the original objectives of the project. The elephant in the room of development delays and the slow rollout of content is something that can't go both unnoticed and ignored. New features have added additional layers of complexity to the game, making it harder to maintain and potentially causing conflicts with other existing elements. As the features get added or stacked into the list of goals, development takes longer because of the additional work required to implement, test, and integrate them. Now, while this isn't a deal breaker for me, I know it has been for a lot of players. And on top of the countless delays that updates and Kickstarter goals have experienced, I understand why backers and critics may refer to Star Citizen as the game that their grandchildren will inherit. The game has become the largest and most ambitious project in gaming history, and it's unlikely to face a reasonable competitor for a while. Although this game might hold the grand champion title of the largest crowdfunded project ever, it might not necessarily be a good thing, at least not always. The current funding numbers come out to $786 million with 5.5 million backers. Both Squadron 42 and Star Citizen don't have any traditional investors like other projects, so it's primarily crowdfunded. And the store includes merch, in-game assets like cosmetic armor sets, paints, and of course, ships. While nearly $800 million in funding is an absolute ludicrous amount of money, it's being utilized to develop 2 games, host community events like CitizenCon, inside Star Citizen, host their servers, their cloud services, and obviously market the game. Tying this back to the feature creep mentioned earlier, the funding goals page on the RSI website has never had an additional goal added after the $65 million point was reached, which occurred all the way back in 2015. Many goals have been completed and exist in the persistent universe, but many of them are not, such as the $6 million goal was that Star Citizen would launch with 100 star systems, whereas CIG has announced that 1.0 will instead launch with only 5. CIG has likely realized over the many years of development that a lot of this extra work would be forced onto the back burner. I'm sure that many backers, such as myself, as well as many partners, have probably had many moments where they've given up hope on the game. More than anything, players want an experience, even in an alpha, that they can rely on. If CIG can hold true to their word, 2025 could be Star Citizen's best year yet, and really honing in on that player retention could be their key to an incredible future. Over the years, I've been especially disappointed with the game's performance on even high-end machines. Before the Alpha 4.0 patch, I would have random stutters and frame rate drops of 20 to 30 at a time, resulting in horrendous stuttering to the point where I have to shut my engines off to avoid crashing into anything around me. After using the console command to show client and server statistics, I constantly see an insanely high committed amount of RAM, even though I have 64 gigabytes, and the game still feels like it's sucking the lifeblood from my PC. But here's the thing. While performance issues have definitely been an ongoing challenge, I've also seen a lot of noticeable improvements over the years. Patches have begun to include incremental changes, and although there are some moments where the game still stutters, I'm seeing far fewer of those extreme performance drops than I did before. While we're still in alpha, it's still pretty clear that CIG is actively working on optimization, and it's a reminder that development isn't always linear. Some days it feels like 2 steps forward and 1 step back. The bugs might still appear. They don't completely break the game experience as much as they once did, and the game feels like it's inching ever close to the game that we've all imagined. I can't give the answer to life, the universe, and everything, obviously, but I can give the answer to the question of why am I staying? CIG has most recently announced a more linear path for 2025, prioritizing playability, focusing on enhancing performance, stability, and content delivery, aiming to provide a more enjoyable experience for everyone. I'd be lying if I didn't admit that the announcement of Squadron 42 being officially feature complete back in 2023 didn't take things to the next level for me, because they did. So after years of anticipation, I'm glad to see that CIG might be moving forward with a bit more confidence than years prior. And now with marketing material to highlight a 2026 release date, it feels like that part of the journey is finally in sight. At the end of the day, Star Citizen offers something that few can. There's freedom, immersion, and a universe that truly feels alive. The ability to carve my own path, explore incredible environments, and engage in those complex spacefaring adventures makes it impossible for me to stay logged out. Sure, the game is still an alpha, it still has its bugs, and of course it's far from finished, but the journey I've had so far and the one still to come is keeping me playing. Earning those in-game credits and upgrading my ships and my reputation still feels earned. And as the universe expands, there's still a sense of moving forward, whether I'm investing in a new ship or exploring the new areas of the verse that I've never seen. It's the kind of progression that keeps me feeling like I'm building something that's uniquely mine. Star Citizen isn't just a game, but a vision, and it's one that I really want to see fully realized.
The path is rough, full of twists and turns through dirt and sand, but I'm here to see it through all the way to that smooth, steady ground and beyond. If you enjoyed this video, or if you're just excited as I am for what's coming, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any new videos, and give it a crisp thumbs up. It actually does help the channel much more than you'd think. If you're looking to try out Star Citizen, you can find my referral code in the description for some extra UEC when you create an account, as well as my in-game handle if anyone would like to party up sometime. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you out there in the black.